Hey there. Caught me airing out the rug. Yeah. Wearing a floral shirt. Yeah. What? Yeah, no, no. It's supposed to be like this. It's supposed to no be ironed. It's like casual, bohemian kind of thing, you know. No, you're no. It's summer. You're not supposed to iron your shirts, right? It looks weird if you iron your shirt. Any other time of the year, iron your shirts. But summer, no, just, you know, just wrinkled up and casual, so casual. I don't mind it. It's fine, looks fine to me. Does it mean that I have put in an effort? It's supposed to look like, hey, so loose and carefree, you know, live by my own rules and that. I'm not changing it. I like it. I'm not changing it. Alright. Summary. So today we're going to be talking about the Retail Ransom, otherwise known as why are digital games so expensive? I mean, look at the state of this. Dark Souls 3 Deluxe Edition. I know it's a Deluxe Edition, but look at this. 70 squid. 70 squid. And offers in-app purchases. So not even 70 quid for the whole lot. You spend more money on it. I mean, I think Dark Souls 3 came out in like 1986 or something. Now look at this, the price. Look at the price. It's Chronicles of Riddick. That's not how you pronounce it, is it? It's no Riddick. It's no Chronicles of Riddick. It's Riddick. It's Chronicles of Riddick, isn't it? It's no Chronicles of Riddick. That joke doesn't even work. How can they get away with charging that kind of money on a digital game? I mean, I saw this game on game.com and eBay and all that for like 20 quid. And that was brand new, that wasn't a pre-owned, that was a brand new game. 70 quid. 70 quid. 70 quid. I mean, Fortnite's free, and it's the most popular game since sliced bread. Bread. I mean, unless you're like me, who bought the actual game of Fortnite when it was all about building forts during the night and then you had to survive Fortnite, and then they abandoned it and then they jumped on it like an opportunist, you know, the Battle Royale thing, and then they made the main game mode, the side game mode, and then they dropped the tagline for it. They made £1 trillion off it. The thing is, you can't even be angry at them for it. It's opportunist genius. It's a bit like crapping your bed and then deciding to plant some fuchsias in it. Or using a tragic event to tweet out something really inappropriate. But why do games cost so much money? It's outrageous. For 60 quid I could buy like 7 Freddos. Well, sorry, the simple answer is that they cost so much money because they cost so much money. They cost so much money to make. The last AAA game I worked on was Tom Clancy's The Division, and that game was split across 4 studios. There was Massive, who was the head of production at the time, Ubisoft Reflections, which is the studio that I worked with, Annecy, which they came on, I think they were the 3rd one involved, and Redstorm, who worked on all the weapons stuff. Weapon design, weapon mechanics and things. And The Division took use of Snowdrop, which was the new proprietary engine that was being developed in-house at the time, and it was still kind of in its infancy. So already you're spending quite a lot of money on in-house tools. Not only that, but there were about 1,000 people that worked on The Division. That was over the space of about 5 years. I think that was about 5 years in total. Although not everyone worked at the same time. Not all of those 1,000 people worked on the game at the same time. All of that stuff together, 4 studios, 1,000 developers, in-house tools, 5 years, bigness, that all costs a lot of money, yeah? Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 cost about $450 million with the marketing budget included. And I think GTA 5 was not too far off that as well. They were running too far behind it. But, you know, they made their money back easy. They did what I like to call Skyrimming it, which is just porting your game to every console available. But why specifically are digital games more expensive than physical games? I mean, it makes sense, right?
My thing costs less than no thing. Thing is thing. No thing is no thing. Wow.
I mean, of course, when you buy a game, you're not actually buying a product, you're buying an experience. I think that's a topic for another time. The reason that digital games cost more than retail games starts with something that people in the industry unaffectionately refer to as the retailer ransom. You see, in the early 90s, gaming specialist shops were starting to boom alongside this second wave of video game craze. In the UK, we had Electronics Boutique, who eventually became glomped up by Game, who are GameStop in the US. And they took an enormous share of that market. I mean, at the time, we didn't have anything, any online stores. We didn't actually have online anything. In fact, and like before Tinder, we just walked up to people, just walked up to their face and going like, no, you're alright. Right in their face. Swipe. Got brittle bone disease, by the way. Did I tell you that? Yeah, anyway, we'd swipe on their face. We'd go, I'll go swipe you. People didn't like that very much, but we were, and they got even more confused when we were like, I'm Tinder. They're like, what's Tinder? You're like, it's a thing from the future. As a result of this enormous market share, Game and its contemporaries, they had publishers by the cojones. Cojones? Cojones. Cojones, sorry, it's all correct. Now, to help understand where the money goes, you need to know how the money is divvied up. So in physical disc-based games, the money's divvied up not always the same way, but it's usually in a 50 quid game, about a tenner goes on VAT. In the UK, VAT, valued added tax. Valued added, the tip of the tongue, the teeth and the lips. Value added tax. A tenner goes on tax, so you're already at 40 quid. And then from there, the retailer takes about, I don't know, maybe about another tenner off that. Sometimes even 15, depending on the deal struck. 10 to 15 quid. So say about 25 quid ever makes it back to the publisher. And from there, the publisher takes care, especially if it's an in-house publisher developer partnership. The publisher will take care of the manufacturing costs, the distribution costs, marketing. And believe it or not, in a 50 quid game for this kind of setup, maybe only like 3 or 4 quid ever goes to the developer. Like a 50 quid game, the folk that made the game, the people that developed the game, they might see about 4 quid, that 50 quid. And that's less than is usually spent on licensing, so licensed content, music, or even platform royalties, the royalties you spend on getting your game on that platform. So, you know, you can't just throw a game onto Xbox or PlayStation, whatever, free. There is a fee to allowing you to have your game on their platform. It's a privilege fee. So, with about 20%, say, of that cut going to the retailer, you'd think they'd be quite satisfied with that. But as the 90s progressed and we got to about the original PlayStation release time, so 1996, 1997, they started to get a wee bit more demanding of how much they received. And as we got to the early 00s, I'm not calling it the noughties, because if you call it that, you're crap. Didn't do that. Don't call it the noughties. It gives me the heebies. Like enormous Game peddling Simon Cowell's Game and the other retailers decided they wanted to dictate the fates of every game that came into the store. If your publisher decided they wanted to be extra generous with that cut, that previously mentioned cut of money, Game, or the game shop in general, would give them an extra nice spot. Somewhere very nice, prominent, well displayed, maybe at eye level, right at the front of the store, standees, maybe sitting in the window of the shop. Conversely, if you decided that you wanted to skimp on the amount of money that you gave them, maybe they wanted 20% and you said, I can only give you 17%, they might punish you for that. Now, just who's this guy? Sorry, I just saw him on the camera and I was like, he was like screaming right in my ear. Whereas if you decided, I can really only afford to give you 15%, and they're like, okay, we'll just shove it in the back. We'll shove it right at the back of the shop, underneath some grime, we'll throw the coats over it, we'll display your game in the customer toilet. And this actually happened with a couple of Atlas games in the UK. A little spat between publisher and retailer meant that they didn't stock your game at all. And this can actually happen. They can decide, well, if we don't like the deal, we won't stock the game at all, and your game can just not be sold in the biggest retail, brick and mortar retail establishment in the country. And if you're trying to sell your game, that's suicide. Oh, and before I forget, do you know those chart walls in Game, marked 1 to 10, and they usually have like a really popular game at the top? Do you know those aren't actually based on reviews or sales or anything? They're usually part of this publisher deal. Publishers that have made really good deals with the retailers, the retailers tend to give them a really good place on that chart. So it's basically a chart of who's got the deepest pockets. Sad, really. I mean, that doesn't explain why digital games are so expensive, does it? Does it? Well, actually it does, despite the fact that 80% of people are now buying their games digitally. 20% still buy from these larger game establishments, and publishers still want to keep that 20%. Those other guys, they still want to keep them. 20% is a large chunk. It's a lot of the market to alienate. You don't want to make enemies of Simon Cowell with even more crotchety trousers and this thing with his head here. I mean, I'm one to speak, I don't have any head. Look at my pattern. Look at my pattern. Oh, jeez, oh. Look at that. Oh, shouldn't have bought this light. Should you decide that you want to sell your game on the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Live Store or whatever, for less than it would cost for a physical copy, that's seen as an antagonistic move. And that kind of malicious undercutting isn't really tolerated by the retailers, even though the retailers don't have quite as much say-so as they used to do. They can still hold this retailer ransom. So with physical video games being more of a niche product these days, a bit like Blu-rays, don't get me wrong, I know some of you out there, some of you still buy Blu-rays instead of streaming. Chances are you're the sort of guy who wears a waxed Kagul, the kind of guy who goes into HMV and mistakes the nice female staff asking how you are if you want any help as flirting. So with retailers loosening the grasp on the overall market, that means they don't have the power to exert. They don't dictate as much of the market. Therefore, in the future, when there's no physical games, or very, very few, that must mean that digital games will go cheaper, right? With no retail ransom to exert, the digital game stores don't need to be more expensive, so they should be cheaper, right? The game should go down in price. Well, no. The stagnation of prices has been a real problem. Since the 90s, since the mid-90s, games have had a real problem with not meeting inflation. In 1993 or 1994, a can't remember, 1993 or in 1993 or 1994, it cost me 70 UK pounds to buy Street Fighter 2. 70 pounds. And I was like 10 or 11. Can't even remember how old I am. The fact that pricing hasn't increased alongside inflation, it was down to an aggressive focus on competition at the time, like a way to maximise and drive up the volume of sales. That was the goal, was to maximise volume of sales over anything else. As a result, a little bit of shooting in the foot, because now what we've got are games that cost the same as they did 25 years ago. And did nobody notice about 2000 and see, I didn't say noughties. You hear me? Didn't say noughties. 2009 to 2013, tons more games started to come out with tat. Hundreds of tat, hundreds of nonsense. Deal books, ultra editions, mega giga editions, statuettes, collectors, coins. I even have a game for the Xbox 360. I can't remember what it's called. Let me see. Starts with a D. Death Smells. Death Smells. Came with a booby pillow. Came with a mouse mat with boobs on it. Did no one notice that? No one noticed that every game seemed to come out regular edition and massive tat edition. At one point, Ubisoft games were so expensive to make that they were pretty much just breaking even with the money spent on development and distribution and everything. The games themselves became something of lost leaders. They weren't making much money in themselves, but all the crap they were selling, they were making bank off that. And then, you probably remember, publishers started to get really, really desperate, and they started blocking off multiplayer content, and you had to buy a multiplayer pass, or I think new copies came with a multiplayer code, and second-hand games didn't have it. Eventually, publishers, with the focus having been on volume of sales before, but the rising costs eclipsing the amount of money that they were making off individual units, it became an all or nothing kind of approach. You either sold 4 million copies or you made a loss. And eventually, when all those tactics, the merchandise, the multiplayer pass, premium DLC, after all those, they worked, they got the money they needed to continue to boost their business. But then came microtransactions, then came loot boxes, the more insidious side of where gaming has gone. So with the old retailer model and increased development and production, meaning that you either sold millions of copies or you'll bust. That's at the 50 quid RRP price tag. The only way to make a lot of money was to sell a ton of tat, was to sell a bunch of premium DLC, make good use out of the assets that you already built, or just sell hundreds and hundreds of loot boxes. And so as the physical games disappear and the digital games take over entirely, and expense of buying games and cost to make games have now kind of met in the middle, and we're like, 60 quid for a game, that's about right. That's about right now, like as we are, that's maybe a bit more, but we're fine with that. Digital games shouldn't go down in price. They should remain at this price. Thinking that they should go down in price is erroneous. What we should be looking at though, what we should be watching for, if games do remain at that price, why should there be all this other superfluous crap? Why should there also be microtransactions? Why should there also be tat? It shouldn't be why the games cost 60 quid, because they merit 60 quid. I know you're yelling, you're like, they make billions and billions and billions with microtransactions. That's the point. The point is that they They make billions with microtransactions, not in spite of them. If you were to remove the extra stuff, the microtransactions, the premium DLC, all the other stuff, if you were to remove it and just pay the 60 or the 65 or the 70 digitally, that's a reasonable amount with the volume of sales currently, the 4 or 5 million units sold. That's more than enough to cover costs. What we should really be watching out for though is if games continue to sell digitally for 70 quid and they also come alongside the ton of the other stuff, all the other stuff they used to use to make up for the money lost. The alternative, of course, is that we scrap the entry fee. You know, all games become free-to-play model. All games become nothing up front and a whole bunch of other microtransactions, premium outfits, DLC, tack-on purchases. You know, you basically get entry to the club free, and then everything else comes at a premium. And a lot of games are going down that route now, which is cool. I mean, I think you either choose one or the other. You either make your game 60, 70 quid, or you make your game free with a ton of other ways to make up money. But digital games are priced correctly. They're priced accordingly. They're priced fairly, as long as there aren't any other dodgy transactions hidden away like that little asterisk. Do you remember it from the start? So, do you think games are priced fairly? Do you think it's right that we should be paying the same amount of money for a digital game as we would a physical game, or more? And given the choice, would you rather have a 70 quid digital game or a free digital game with infinite number of microtransactions? What would you choose? And before I forget, check out Cake Bash, the game that I and 2 others have been working on for a wee while, good wee while. It's a 4-player party game, and it's got cakes. The cakes punch each other, and there's a pigeon in it, and the crab. What do you want? It's going to be priced fairly. There's no microtransactions, as far as I'm aware. Look at that. Does that not look good, eh? Does that not look like the sort of thing you'd play? That you'd spend £20 to £22 on, something like that.